It's a desire we all share, to lead a rich, fulfilling, happy life. But you can't always get what you want.
Why are we so fickle? Why is it that one day the things that make us happy, the next day bring us misery?
This emotional life is a roller coaster, taking us from the heights of ecstasy to the depths of despair and every place between.
All emotions have a role in a healthy life. We're not automatons.
I'm Dan Gilbert, and in this series, I'm going to introduce you to everyday people who are searching for happiness, as well as to the scientists and clinicians who are trying to help them find it.
Part of what I've taken away from this work is the resilience of the human spirit. It is just amazing what we can go through and be okay.
At first, I thought I was going crazy. The dreams, the nightmares. But I'm not letting it beat me. What more can I say? I'm a happy camper.
We'll explore the obstacles to happiness. Emotions such as fear, sadness, and anger.
Have I lost it to the point where I did feel like I've lost it? Yeah.
I went through like 6 or 7 years of real depression. I just was never quite given the right pill.
We'll see what happiness is, what causes it, and why we look for it in all the wrong places.
I used to think that things would make me happy. More money, success. I'm realizing now that that's not the fact. Happiness comes from within.
But first we'll see how our greatest source of happiness lies in the people around us. Exploring how our relationships go right, how they go wrong, and what we can all do to make them better.
I went out and I did things that I regret. There's a certain space in my wife's heart that I don't have anymore, and I want to win that space back.
Coming up, family, friends, and lovers on This Emotional Life.
This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
We all want to live happily ever after, to experience more pleasure than pain, more delight than despair, more joy than sorrow. But how can we do it? The answer, science suggests, lies right in front of us, in the success of our social relationships. I'm Dan Gilbert. I'm a social psychologist, and I study happiness, which is what brings me to one of the world's most interesting laboratories, New York's Grand Central Terminal, where every day thousands of people walk, weave, and run across its bustling concourse without bumping into each other. They sense where others are going, they move to let them get there. It's a masterpiece of human choreography. Why does this matter? Because the skills that allow us to navigate a crowded train station are exactly the same skills that allow us to navigate the complex world of social relationships. And as scientists now know, successful relationships, more than any other factor, are the key to human happiness.
I think that relationships are everything, and having the right people around you is everything.
The thing about friendship is you got to work on it. You got to keep that connection. You can't let it die, because it dies, it's over, man. Gangrene.
The fragility of human relationships. A Thanksgiving dinner. You bring the dish. Well, why'd you bring the mashed potatoes? You're supposed to make sweet potatoes. You said mashed potatoes. No, I said sweet potatoes. All of a sudden, that's it. 45 years, no talking.
All of our relationships begin with the very first one. Human babies can't walk or run. They can't hunt or hide. They can't find food or shelter. But none of that matters because human infants know how to get other people to do all this for them. They smile once, and we're their slaves for life. For more than half a century, scientists have been studying how this happens, how children form bonds with their caregivers. The process is called attachment, and much of what we know about attachment comes from studies of children for whom the attachment process has gone terribly, painfully wrong. I went to West Bend, Wisconsin, to visit a family struggling with these problems. Jane McCormick is an elementary school teacher. Her husband, John, an attorney.
Yeah, it looks cute. Sounds so cute. Wow.
They're parents to two adopted children. Alex is 13.
You're in trouble.
And Nadia is 11.
You all ready? You got everything you need?
Yeah.
Got your lock for your gym locker?
I already know the combination down.
Nadia and Alex are two disparate souls. They're so different in their personalities and in their view of the world. Nadia is such an outgoing child and is the life of the party.
Yay! Good job.
Everybody likes Nadia. You're one of the first ones. And Alex, it's been so difficult. Alex, listen to me.
I don't want to. You're not making sense.
If you're the first...
But no, just listen to what else.
Mama's saying, no, Mom's on the phone, and she's saying save it for her. She wants to hear the whole story.
Yeah, but I want to tell you one more thing.
Yeah, but I'm on the phone.
I want to finish it.
He gets too close. He's in people's space, and he doesn't recognize that. He's so focused on what he's trying to do that he cannot see what the other person is doing.
This is my baby book. See this page right here? There's me.
The differences between Alex and Nadia became obvious to the McCormicks the first time they met them, in an orphanage in western Siberia.
Within about an hour and a half of our arrival, a woman in a white uniform walked in with a baby in her arms, and we knew from the photograph we'd seen that that was our daughter, Nadia.
Nadia, Papa.
Nadia seemed very easygoing. She seemed comfortable with us.
Jane was holding her, and you're just looking at the child and the wonderment of it all. And of course, Alex came in and took one look at us and started screaming bloody murder.
They said that he was very high maintenance, that he was a restless baby was the way they described it. It was probably harder for the workers to attach to him because he was hard to comfort.
Nadia would come and sit with you and play with you and love to be held, and Alex, he would go sit off on his own.
Back in the United States, John and Jane kept trying to connect with Alex, but had little success.
We were up at the cabin, and we were taking a walk, and I had gotten ahead with Nadia, and they were sitting on the trail. And Alex was sitting between Jane, and he bent over, and then he lifted his head up quickly and hardly and took her right underneath the chin and about knocked her out. This is after they're walking down the trail holding hands. He had suddenly dawned on him that I don't want this care person.
One of the areas that he struggles with the most is the social interactions. At school, he really wants to have relationships with kids, but he has a difficult time with boundaries. He very often is touching people when he shouldn't be touching, poking, hugging, and it seems difficult for him to recognize any social cues that they give back to him.
Did you have the sense you were going to be able to overcome the behavioral problems that you saw in Alex?
We had the sense that however long he'd been in the orphanage, he'll need that amount of time to adjust.
So at what point did you realize that's not how it was going to happen?
About 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Went by the time he was 5. Tell me what you want me to know, because I know it was a rough ending to the day.
I just can't handle that.
Even after all the years of working on developing that bond, I still feel like I'm not sure he's accepted me as his mother.
I don't really care.
It's terrible as a mom to know your child doesn't love you, will not bond with you. That's terrible.
We've looked for diagnoses that would help him. It seems like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is quite common diagnosis. Childhood bipolar disorder also. So we thought, oh great, there's medication for that and he'll take the medication and everything will be fine. He actually was hospitalized at a psychiatric hospital when he was going into 3rd grade, I think it was, because the medication created even, increased effects. He was, at that young age, talking suicide, homicidal thoughts.
A breakthrough finally came when the McCormicks heard about a professor at the University of Wisconsin who was studying other Eastern European orphans with emotional problems just like Alex's.
You can go right in here, have a seat right over here.
When we talked with Alex about participating in this study, I felt that he would probably either be indifferent to it or that he would maybe not want to do it. And he amazed me.
There's going to be a lot more kids like me in the future, and I want people to know how to treat them perfectly. Like, not perfectly, but treat them better. Like, see, I had a harder life, but I want those other kids to have an easier life. Oops.
Dr. Seth Pollack, the psychologist behind the study, believes the problems that children like Alex face, problems relating to others, problems regulating their emotions, even problems interpreting other people's facial expressions, are the result of attachment gone wrong.
These are children being raised in ways that are just not typical for our species in terms of mass care, lack of that real interpersonal caregiving that one expects between a caregiver and a child.
For much of the 1990s, toddlers in Russian orphanages spent most of their time alone in a crib. Because the overworked nurses were each responsible for 15 to 20 children, they didn't have time to do more than feed the children and change their diapers. When the children cried, they were simply ignored.
The child is learning that other people are not there for you, that people won't protect you and comfort you, that if you want to be calmed, maybe you had better find a way to do it yourself. And if these are the basic building blocks that a child is starting to learn very early in life, then it becomes easy to see how that kind of learning experience will lead to social and emotional problems later.
Pollack's research builds on work that began in the 1940s, when psychologists noticed that children who were raised in orphanages often developed emotional problems. Given that these children had all of their physical needs met, what exactly was it that they weren't getting? In a now famous experiment, psychologist Harry Harlow took newborn rhesus monkeys away from their mothers and allowed them to choose between 2 artificial mothers. One made of wire provided food but no comfort. The other, covered in cloth, provided some comfort but no food. Time and again, the baby monkeys chose the cloth mother over the wire mother, suggesting that even a little bit of soft comfort was more important to them than food.
And this simple, basic reaction made us believe that we could define and measure what had previously been undefinable and unmeasurable, the baby's love for its mother.
As the monkeys who'd been taken from their mothers grew up, Harlow noticed something else. The monkeys experienced a wide range of social and emotional problems, from aggressive outbursts to uncontrollable fear, all because they hadn't been loved. It was a dramatic experiment, in many ways an awful experiment. I've seen this film 100 times, and every time I see it, I think, my God, this is torture. But that was exactly Harlow's point. Harlow wanted to show that you could take care of a monkey's every physical need, but if you deprived it of love, you could destroy its life.
If not for that early research on monkeys and their need for love and comfort, I don't think we ever would have framed questions about why some of the children coming out of these institutions are having the kinds of problems that they did. The lesson that I think we've learned is that it's not just about food, shelter, water, that a basic need for human beings is love, is companionship, are close relationships.
Harlow's experiments showed that a failure to bond has dire consequences. But how exactly does this happen? Dr. Pollack believes the answer has something to do with a brain chemical called oxytocin, which researchers recently learned plays an important role in social relationships.
Oxytocin was identified as being a hormone that helps with the formation of attachments. That is a hormone that allows the brain to form close relationships and allows an individual to feel a sense of calm and comfort when close to somebody that they care for.
To investigate this hypothesis, Pollack tested two groups of 4-year-old children. One group raised by biological parents, and another made up of adopted children who'd spent an average of 16 months in an Eastern European orphanage.
Touch the face that shows how the little boy is feeling.
It looks like happy.
Both groups were asked to play a computer game. But the game wasn't the real point. What Pollack wanted to know was how the children responded to the comfort and care of their parent. Pollack measured the amount of oxytocin in the child's body before and after the test. Among children who were raised by their biological parents, oxytocin levels shot up. But the children who were raised in orphanages showed no oxytocin increase at all.
The kids with the early neglect never showed the oxytocin release even with their mom. So something that should have resulted in an increase in oxytocin, physical comforting from a parent, did not.
That's you. You choose one for mommy.
Choose one for me?
There are many reasons why children who've been neglected as babies find it hard to form secure relationships as adults. But Dr. Pollack's results seem to identify one of the biological mechanisms underlying the problem.
The key behind the oxytocin, and this is just my speculation, is it's about reward. Love could be a lot like a drug. It's something that we crave, and when we take it, it results in pleasurable, rewarding feeling. If being close to someone doesn't have that rewarding value, it's not going to have the same meaning. And so I think the big question to ask here is, when your early relationships have been disrupted, do social relationships have the same reward?
These studies suggest that a child's brain is, to some extent, molded by love. That we are, in a very real sense, wired to connect.
Family is above everything. It's above the individual. It's above independence. There's sort of a required self-sacrifice for the family.
I grew up in a very passionate family, a very loud family, lots of kids.
There's always people, what was it about your childhood that caused you to act like this? As much as I'd like to blame my parents, I can't do that.
There were two people there who are older than me, who gave me money and fed me. I'm sure they did love me, you know, but it wasn't like I'd come home, come here, sonny, come here, ooh, I love you, you know, nothing like that.
But attachment doesn't just affect a child's biology. Attachment is a two-way street. And just as children's brains are changed by the presence of their parents, so too are parents' brains changed by the presence of their child. In a delivery room in Houston, Texas, the attachment process has already begun. Not once, but twice.
You got a buddy in there, huh?
Good job.
Shauna and Jeremy Jones are having twins.
Yeah, it's gonna be Donnie and David, the names of their grandfathers.
Grandsons.
Donnie, this is David.
Oh, there he is. Okay, buddy.
All right, all right.
It's clear that no one has to tell Donnie and David how to reach out to their parents, and no one has to tell their parents how to respond.
Found your finger.
When David was 1 day old, he made a noise like, and I made a noise back to him, hey. And he made a noise back, and I made a noise back, and kind of went back and forth. It was kind of a really, I'll never forget that. It was our first conversation.
What y'all doing hanging out?
Reciprocal interaction with children, we believe, is very important for child development. There is a feedback loop that's established when the parent says, coos at a child, and the child's able to coo back, and the parent responds to that. The child has this feeling, I am being paid attention to.
It's like no other relationship with somebody that you meet, you're figuring them out, and this was just instantaneous. Just from the moment that they put them in my hands when they were born. There really aren't any words to describe that. Right. There we go. Yay.
Babies are cute in a way that attracts adults. We have almost an innate reaction, a visceral response to seeing a beautiful baby face smile at us.
The subtle power of a baby's smile intrigues developmental pediatrician Lane Strathern. In a recent experiment, he set out to investigate what happens in a mother's brain when she sees her baby smile.
In our experiment, we wanted to look at what brain areas are activated and how it may differ when the baby's happy or sad.
Dr. Strathern brought 28 new mothers into his laboratory and videotaped their babies making a range of facial expressions.
Hey.
He then asked each mother to enter a magnetic resonance imaging chamber, and he monitored her brain activity as the images of her child were replayed. Strathern noticed something interesting. When a mother watched her child smile, certain parts of her brain were activated, the same parts that are activated when people think about food or sex.
These reward circuits give us the information that this is something that we need to pay attention to.
So the brain is saying, I am in the presence of something very important and potentially very good.
That's right. And I think when mothers see their baby, that's the signal that they need to hear. This baby is completely dependent on them, and they need to respond to those signals in order to optimize their baby's development.
This is nature's way of making sure that children are taken care of. But sometimes circumstances get in the way. Researchers now know that attachment can unfold in a variety of ways, some of which are much better than others. In central Pennsylvania, first-time mother Danielle Fife is eager to give her baby the best start she can in life. But the odds are stacked against her. She's single, living below the poverty line, and gets little help from family or friends.
I didn't really have support from anybody. I pretty much had myself. Having a baby changes your life completely, and I didn't realize that until it happened. The other day, Mackenzie colored her nose blue. It was funny, though. I should have took a picture, but I didn't. My first thought of being a mom was, okay, am I ready for this? Am I financially ready? I don't really have a good job. I don't have a house. I'm not where I want to be in life yet to have a child. I thought how my mom was and how I don't want to be, I didn't want to be like that.
Hi, guys.
Over a year ago, before her daughter was born, Danielle turned to the Nurse Family Partnership, a pioneering program aimed at helping first-time low-income mothers develop parenting skills. psychologist David Olds founded the program to make sure attachment unfolds in the best possible way.
I think that all of us, as human beings, are wired to protect our children, to nurture our children. And I think that it's important as we think about these issues to recognize that the survival of our species depends upon our being good parents.
And she's going to want to feed herself. Very important to let her do that,
Yes.
have that independence we want.
Dr. Olds has seen firsthand how daily stresses can easily overwhelm mothers like Danielle and lead to attachment problems.
Involve baby and imagination and rhythm games.
The things that lead to a secure attachment, nurturing, understanding, making the child feel cared for, can be taught. And this is the work of the Nurse-Family Partnership.
Whatever you start with her now at this age, and do it consistently, the same thing at about the same time every day.
Right.
She's going to start remembering that. What plays off of that then comes trust, because they know the same thing's going to happen every day at the same time.
Baker's man.
If parents accurately read their children's signals, the child is more likely to develop a sense of security, a sense of trust in the world, and that will lead the child to be what researchers refer to as being securely attached.
It's just nice to have someone tell you, okay, like this is what to expect. With like the little social skills and stuff, it's cool to see how your baby is developing. I mean, you go to the doctor, all they do is weigh them, measure them, say, oh, you're doing a great job, see you in, a month or two.
Does your baby stiffen?
We've tested the program in 3 separate scientifically controlled studies, found that the children were less likely to exhibit disruptions in their early emotional behavior. So these early emotional expressions have been affected by the intervention.
Have a good rest of the day.
Oh, you too.
I didn't know anything about bringing up kids when I first had kids, but really nothing. I mean, I knew that there were 2 techniques. I knew that there was being a doormat, and I knew that there was severe punishment and real strictness, and I didn't like either of those things.
I feel I'm a pretty good father. I'm not spending every weekend, every hour of every weekend with them, but I don't think they want to spend that much time with me anyway. Did I want to be with my parents when I was 14, 12, 14? No. No, I wanted to avoid being with my parents.
I happen to have a lot of kids, like 6 kids and 2 marriages, so, and to see that, I mean, it's corny, but that miracle, it is amazing. And so it gives you good perspective, and I think it made me appreciate other stuff. For example, you're home with 2, 3, 4 kids, all of a sudden you're like, man, that tennis thing doesn't seem too hard.
Human beings are wired to connect. Many things determine how well we can do this. Our earliest experiences, our temperaments, the circumstances of our lives. But these things don't seal our fates. There's evidence that in even the most extreme circumstances, the capacity to connect with others can develop. And that's exactly what Alex McCormick's parents are struggling to help him do.
From the time he was 4 until now, it's just been a constant search for the key to help him be comfortable in his environment.
Alex has now been diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder, a condition that affects children whose early relationships have been severely disrupted. But this diagnosis raised a question. Why did Alex develop the disorder while his sister Nadja, like most children who spend time in orphanages, did not? One possibility is that Alex lived in the orphanage for 2.5 years, whereas Nadia lived there for just 9 months.
Children with very, very short periods of institutionalization later in development tend to look exactly like their peers who were raised with their families of origin.
Another possibility is that Nadia, who was naturally happy and outgoing, simply got more attention than her less sociable brother did.
You have the opportunity to create a bonding relationship, but it's still exceptionally difficult the older the child is. They've learned not to trust.
Hey, buddy.
One of the people we found The only one that's truly helped us out of a variety of them in terms of psychological care is a man by the name of Ray Kinney.
For the past decade, psychotherapist Dr. Ray Kinney has specialized in treating institutionalized children from Eastern Europe, many of whom have been diagnosed with reactive attachment disorder.
Like if the whole family's there, it's a lot more difficult than if it's just Alex with one of us.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
A child who has reactive attachment disorder has a built-in aversion to allowing his parents to guide and nurture and direct him in life. What problems do you remember having?
Well, I was having trouble with hitting my sister a lot, and like being abusive to my family, I guess, and stuff like that.
Dr. Kinney uses a behavioral approach to teach families how to minimize disruptive behavior and create a family environment in which loving relationships can flourish.
It's all about creating safety, and the way that you do that with a child is experience after experience after experience, where in spite of the child's behavior pushing you away, you're there for the child, trying to meet their needs. In the therapy sessions, I'm modeling how to communicate. Can I play like I'm you?
Yeah.
So, Mom and Dad, I know you love me. The children that I work with have a tremendous difficulty of expressing their feelings.
What would make you feel loved? That's what I meant.
Okay, you got it. You know how much I love Mom.
Yeah.
What is really difficult is that Mom works very hard. Before you run up and just start blurting things out, I'd like you to look at Mom and ask her how her day went.
And tonight, Mom says, Alex, please stop doing this.
Stop it right away.
This is not instinctive childcare. You have to learn to raise these children. And to do that, you have to take all your love and your emotion that you want and put it on a shelf.
What about you guys? I mean, what about your own journey? This is a journey for you too. When you look back on it, would you say it's been tough, but it's been worthwhile? Or, gosh, I would never do it again?
This was not the dad I wanted to be. And that was the hard part with Alex, is recognizing that I have to be somebody else who is best for him. And that's a hard thing to give up. But maybe that's what being a dad is.
You had a hard time trusting your new parents.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And I'm really eager to find out how that's going now.
Yeah. Actually, it's that I know of. It's been going a lot better lately.
Do parents need love?
Yes. They do.
Yeah, I think we all do, right? So we got to make sure Mom and Dad are getting their fair share. They need some of your love. So let's find out how you can show some. Maybe even if it doesn't feel natural, you could practice it. I think of these children as really quite courageous. These children are survivors, and they're just doing what they need to do to survive emotionally. With the right direction, these children get better.
With all the struggles that Alex has had, his struggles outside the home and his struggles with us, it's never been an issue of love. That's good.
In looking at Alex's changes in the beginning to end, it's often difficult to see them when you're involved with the day-to-day. Just like it's hard to realize a child has grown another inch. And I always go back and remember the first days. And when you keep that in focus, you can see the growth and the change in Alex.
He has a great heart. He's very deep. As much as you think he's not noticing how people feel or whatever, and there are times that he doesn't. I think that he does have a good future ahead of him if he can find his niche.
It's been a very difficult journey for us, and for Alex, and for Nadia. But I think we've come a long way from where we were.
I'll be thinking about you all day. Have a good one.
Without my friends, I would be a squashed bug on the street. I feel safe with them. I feel like they have my best interest at heart, so they'll tell me things that are hard to hear, and then they'll tell me things that are really, really nice to hear.
What I look for in friends is loyalty, and that doesn't mean that you have to endorse everything I do, but it means that there's a fundamental honesty and a willingness to go the distance with someone.
I think I was 19 years old when I was shooting a movie on location in Utah. And so I'm getting paid to do a job. I've got cash in my hand. You know, I'm a working actress. I could go out and buy whatever I want, and I was desperately lonely.
Got a lot of friends? Oh, yeah. How many? 3. I don't have a lot of friends.
I have trouble reading people's emotions. Emotions like smiling, crying, anger. There's certain things that people do in their eyes, their nose, their mouth, their hands, their everything. I just don't see that.
29-year-old Jason Ross has Asperger's syndrome, a neurological disorder that impairs the ability to read other people's emotions, which makes relationships extremely difficult.
Is this the only one you put down?
Yeah. Okay. Since I have Asperger's, I don't know when people like me and people don't like me. It makes me feel frustrated.
I felt that something was not quite right with Jason. Almost from the day I brought him home from the hospital, his responses were not as quick as they should have been.
As Jason grew up, the nature of his problem became increasingly clear. He was bright, healthy, but just couldn't connect with other people.
Jason, let's see you do the basket.
If someone came over to play with him, he was thrilled that he had someone come over and play with him. The only thing is, he really didn't want to interact with them.
There he is, Jason Ross, 16 and a half years old. Shut up!
I couldn't fit in well, and everyone else would be playing and I would just go off and want to do my own thing.
I think Jason was one of the loneliest people I've ever met. He didn't know how to relate to people on any level.
We learn to relate to people at home. Our parents and families have to love us, but other people don't. As important as family relationships are, in some sense, they're just practice for what comes next. As children, our parents and siblings are the whole world to us, but as we grow, that world expands to include friends. A few in childhood, a few dozen in adolescence, and if Facebook is to be believed, a few thousand by the time we're done. Everyone knows that friends are good for us, but not everyone knows just how good. Without friendships, people suffer in ways that science is just beginning to understand. When I look out at all these people, one of the things I notice is very few of them are interacting with each other. They're just in the same place at the same time. Do you see a lot of loneliness when you look out on a scene like this?
I see a lot of isolation.
So you can actually be lonely in a crowd?
Absolutely.
Social psychologist John Cacioppo studies how our biology is affected by our social relationships. He's focused much of his work on the impact of chronic loneliness.
Loneliness is associated with a variety of mental and physical disorders. Heart disease, diabetes, dementias, accidents, suicides, a broad range.
So you're at risk as much from being lonely as you are from smoking?
It sounds hard to believe, but the answer is yes. It's bad for people's health.
Cacioppo's work suggests that the need for companionship is crucial, like the need for food and water.
Loneliness was thought to be like depression, neuroticism, shyness, but it's much more of a signal, very much like hunger and thirst and pain, that says something that's critical for your survival is absent.
Why are we wired to get into these awful states when we're not connected?
It's because we work effectively as a collective. We survive and our offspring survive because we work together in all kinds of unique combinations of people. That's what makes us such a powerful species.
Scientists who study human evolution speculate that the main reason why we have such big brains is that they allow us to interact with others, to distinguish friends from enemies, to cooperate with large numbers of unrelated people. But cooperation is complicated. To do it, we have to be able to determine what another person wants and decide whether or not to give it to them. Not everyone can do these things so easily. Jason Ross is more than willing to help people get what they want, if only he could tell what it is they want. Throughout his childhood and early adult life, Jason's family struggled to understand what was wrong with him. They saw one doctor after another. But Asperger's wasn't a standard diagnosis until 1994, and so Jason was treated for a variety of conditions he didn't actually have, from attention deficit disorder to Tourette's syndrome.
They could not give me a definitive answer. And I kept saying, there's something not right, there's something not right. And it was basically through my working as a volunteer, I was working with a 13-year-old who had Asperger's. And that was the first time I heard of the diagnosis. And I came home and I said to my husband, I said, I felt like I just spent an hour with Jason.
And I know the whole prayer.
I don't think you do.
Oh no, do you want me to sing it again?
No.
You don't want to?
Can we hear the
I don't
first
think
half?
this is the place for you to sing.
Should I? Does anyone else want it?
No.
Why are you being in control of everything?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam.
You have got to be kidding me.
Shehekiyanu v'kimanu.
Dr. Ami Klin is one of the nation's leading Asperger's researchers. Over the past decade, he's conducted a series of studies on how people like Jason process social information.
Individuals with Asperger's syndrome don't know how to play the social game. And because those individuals tend to learn about the world explicitly, they almost like learn about the world rather than learning to function in the world.
Jason, so nice to see you. Thank you for coming.
We asked Jason to visit Klin's lab, where he watched scenes from the film Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
God damn you!
The action of that movie happens in people's faces.
Hi!
It happens in people's posture. And it often happens not when somebody was speaking to another, but in the reaction of another.
And started thinking that maybe it wasn't such a good idea after all, that maybe Georgie boy didn't have
Using a specially developed technology, a cap fitted with miniature cameras, Dr. Klin and his team can actually watch the film from Jason's perspective.
Those cameras film the movements of Jason's eye as he's watching the movie, and from that we can deduce what it is that Jason is actually focusing on. This cross is showing us that Jason is actually looking at this light fixture a lot in the background, whereas many viewers would be spending a lot more time looking at the action of these four central characters and what they're doing and how they're relating to one another.
I think it's colored our whole life.
And then we're all finished with that. So what did you think of the film?
It was pretty good.
Yeah? Did you notice anything particular about it? Anything that interested you?
Yeah, many things.
What were some of those things?
The young girl with the blonde hair, she had the big teeth, and I noticed little things in the background.
Oh yeah? Did you remember any of those?
Yeah, like when before he went in the closet in the string, and the thing at the end of the string.
Jason's responses help explain why people with Asperger's find it so hard to build relationships. He hardly notices the social cues that most of us read without even thinking about them.
We are constantly trying to read other people's minds because we want to know their intentions and how they feel about us. If I am not paying attention to those things, if I'm not obsessed in trying to get a sense of what the social situation means, and all that I go by is your words actually might mean exactly the opposite of what you intend.
If we can't tell how someone is feeling, if we don't know what their words or actions mean, then we don't know how to behave towards them. People with Asperger's syndrome are rare, but the problems they face are the problems all of us face in everyday life. All of us sometimes have trouble making sense of the social world. After all, who hasn't felt shy or awkward or alienated or confused? The question is, what can we do about it?
Most of the time, most people see me as like this little boy instead of like a man. It doesn't matter where the situation is or who I meet, but the person will say a joke and tell me this is really true. And they'll be like, a few hours like, oh, we were just lying. It makes me feel pretty bad. I don't understand why people do that to me.
For the past 4 years, Jason has worked with Dr. Richard Perry, a psychiatrist who specializes in helping people with Asperger's syndrome learn some of the social skills that most of us take for granted.
When I first interviewed Jason, he and the family already kind of knew that this might be the diagnosis. I'm going to ask you some questions from a questionnaire that you filled out some years ago.
Right.
Okay, and see what your responses are like.
Okay.
Okay. In a social group, I can easily keep track of several different people's conversations.
No. I cannot keep, I can only keep track of one person at a time, because then I have to read everyone's cues, and it's hard to know when to jump in and when not to because of boundaries and stuff.
The goal in therapy, when you're working with people with Asperger's, is to help them to become as sociable as possible, to be as independent as possible.
Definitely.
I think Jason has made progress in treatment. Part of it is everybody knowing what his issues are and trying to make reasonable accommodations. And then asking, on the other hand, that he make accommodations and understand that when he's talking to somebody, he should listen, process the information, and not pick up a detail of what they're saying and go off into monologues.
That's why my friend Calvin, he always says to me, I'm like the Energizer Bunny.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You keep on going and going and going,
yes.
Right? Okay, okay.
What are you doing this weekend, Jason? It was my job to try to work with him, to role play and help him learn the different signals. We would work together where he would look at my eyes and get an idea of my facial expressions.
This is my room, everyone. This is where I post things on my bulletin board, different things I want to remember, different things. This talks about how to speak and listen to people. I had 3 guides for dummies. This one is the most important thing because it talks about dating and social skills and stuff like that. They talk about how to start a conversation with someone, when you hate your date, when you like your date. I love to write. It's the best way for me to communicate with people. My name on my blog is drivemomcrazy.com. It's not to drive mom crazy simply, but it's just be more relaxed and be more sensitive. When I blog, I definitely like to just tell people different things that I've learned in the past. I want to tell people sometimes about what's been going on in my life, but mostly to inspire people. I really wanted to become a doctor. When I was going through a really rough time, I was like fumbling what to do, and my mom, she looked up on the internet about ultrasound. So I went to ultrasound school, and here I am. Can I come in? Okay. Hi.
Hi.
My name is Jason. I'm gonna be doing an echocardiogram today, an ultrasound of your heart. Most people with Asperger's struggle at work because we have to adapt to what other people are doing and saying.
How does it look so far?
It looks pretty good. Dr. Coleman's the one who tells you the results. With patients, I have to just block out everything that's going on with myself and just worry about them. Their heart's beating, and that's all I can tell you. So.
Ow!
Sorry. I know it sticks. 5 years ago, I didn't have friends. I wasn't working. I was struggling a lot. I'm still struggling, but not as much. I've been thinking about this one friend that I met recently. His name is Emmanuel, and he has Asperger's too.
She wanted me to resend my resume.
Yeah?
Yes.
When I'm with my friend, it makes me feel like I have value. We treat each other like people. After I read it, I can lend it to you.
Jason's dealt with a lot of adversity in his life, and he's come such a long way. He really is an inspiration. I'm not saying that to be cheesy or anything in any way. I just want to make sure that people know and that he knows how proud everyone is of him.
We all have trouble once in a while recognizing what other people need. But for most of us, the bigger problem is trying to decide what to do when another person's needs conflict with our own. Scientists see friendship as an uneasy alliance between people who have different motivations, desires, and points of view. Friends push and pull each other like ballroom dancers. But what starts out as a waltz often ends up as a tug of war between two people, both of whom want to lead, but in opposite directions. As business partners, aerialists Laura Whitwer and Angela Jones may have an unusual job. But the tensions they experience are all too common.
It's always tricky. It requires a lot of trust. It requires a lot of knowing where the other person is in space, anticipating.
I love Angela. She's the only person that I would trust my life to. But I think at the end of the day, that if Angela and I were not working together, I don't know that we would be friends.
You are never between my legs. You are never between my legs. This is...
Then why was I between you like that? I think our natural dynamics are kind of like, you know, when you try to stick two magnets together and the polarities are off.
You got hot once. I got hot once.
Laura and I are different in about every way possible.
Angela came from the modern dance world, whereas I come from a theatrical background.
I think she sees the world a lot in terms of black and white.
I can't go back over.
And I see a lot of shades of gray.
We can cut it if you want to, but we did it yesterday.
All I know is I do not have time to flip over, pull all that in, and then go.
We fight all the time. Serious knockdown, drag out fights.
I just want to decide one way or the other.
We got into the fight of the century.
But I'm feeling rushed no matter what.
And we turned to each other and said, this is it. This is it. Can't do it.
2 months before the biggest show of their careers, the future of Laura and Angela's relationship looks bleak. Can people avoid these sorts of workplace conflicts? Dr. Richard Hackman, a pioneer in organizational psychology, thinks that under some circumstances, conflict can be a very good thing. He studied how groups, ranging from airline pilots to the CIA, succeed and fail when they try to work together.
Although I do laboratory research, I have spent a lot of time going out into the field to see how groups operate in their real situations.
And now he's studying an unusual kind of orchestra.
Orpheus Chamber Orchestra is very interesting. There's no conductor. There's nobody on the podium. So what can we see about how conflict is managed, how leadership is handled? Here, the group itself is doing all those things that in a traditional orchestra conductor does.
We should decide whether we're going to go yup-up-up-up-bum or yup-up-up-up-bum.
We can release like a natural way of not screaming it out.
Not a 4, not a 6.
Yeah, I just made a mistake.
Yeah.
I just want some resonance.
All right, can we do it again? Let's just hear each other, enjoy it without going each part a little bit selfish moment. I'm going to write down something, not selfish, I don't know.
No one say a word about this. Should we go to the end?
Well, yeah.
The biggest single lesson about managing conflict or managing other things that happen in a group would be go toward the conflict rather than away from it. If what I do is to suppress it, to run away from it, to smooth it over, the conflict runs the risk just below the surface of seething and coming out in more destructive fashion later.
As the deadline for their big show approaches, Laura and Angela seek help from a protege of Hackman's, workplace consultant Dr. Ben Datner.
Tell me a little bit how things evolved as far as your respective roles.
When we first started, I was the one who had all the experience in corporate events and things like that, because I knew kind of how it all worked, what they were looking for.
In the beginning, I did feel like Laura was sometimes giving me the jobs that didn't matter so much.
What was it that you felt like you weren't getting from the partnership?
I felt like I wasn't being heard.
Well, she was a doormat. And my natural inclination working on it is as kind of a bulldozer. And then finally,
I think I reached a boiling point.
And she started to push back.
I think one interesting tension that is always present in organizations is balancing the priorities. Laura represents performing. Let's get it done. Angela represents learning. How do we do something new? And those two things are in tension with each other. Have you ever considered doing something like making one of you more in charge of certain performances? What I encourage them to do is realize that if Laura cedes a little bit on the business and Angela cedes a little bit on the creativity, they can actually have a more integrated partnership.
Laura and Angela swap their traditional roles, and for the first time, Angela takes the lead, communicating directly with the client, an airline in El Salvador.
I do want to explain my conference call with El Salvador a little bit because they're doing a relaunch of their company. They want a sense of transformation, rebirth, regrowing. Who has the other white still?
I do.
Okay, this? Yeah. Costumes, put them in your carry-on. Do we have any kind of protection from the wind at all? If it were here, it would be a lot better. It's going to be out there.
The heat was unreal, and the humidity. And we were told that we were going to be performing inside an airplane hangar. And we were not. We were outside. So it's open to the wind, it's open to the humidity, it is open to bugs.
Do we know, Ed, when we're going to get lights?
I'm really fighting to just shut up and let her do her thing, because she's stressed enough, and I don't think me trying to manage things over top of her is going to help much, but I'm really having to hold back just because I would just...
What did someone say to me once? Everyone's nice until you get to know them. And you just can't get to know a person on a very fundamental level without having a conflict.
We needed perspective. The other person was wrong, dead wrong, all the time. And so much of it was just learning how the other person functions in the world and trying to respect it and not change it.
For me, I try so hard sometimes to change myself. So just hold until there's a die down of applause. And what I had to learn is actually just to really listen to myself and stay with my opinion.
When we walked off the stage, I was so happy. For me, it had been more of a kind of a stressful event. But for Angela, it was a real triumph. In the past, I had always been the one to be uber organized, and she wasn't necessarily known for her organization. And so there was a part of me that kind of sat back and watched and was like, well, let's see how this goes. You know, let's see how organized she can be. And wow, she was phenomenal. That was exciting. That was a whole new level of respect that she had gained there.
Yeah. Both of us have gotten much better about understanding where the other person's coming from and what their motivations are. I feel like underneath it, something has really shifted. And that we have a better understanding of each other overall.
Some people have suggested that it would be great if we could just avoid conflict and have nice, smooth, harmonious group interaction all the time. 1, not possible. 2, be a bad idea, even if it were possible, okay? Because it is in the conflict that we really capture the differences of perspectives that is the reason for having a group in the first place.
The fruits of social relationships are all around us. Every bridge, every park, every surgery, every symphony is the product of human beings who came together to do something greater than any one of them could have done alone. Our big brains give us the skill to cooperate, but that doesn't change the fact that we are animals. And like most other animals, we sometimes choose conflict over cooperation and dominance over diplomacy. Almost every social species has its bullies, and sadly, human beings are no exception. I traveled to Cape Coral, Florida, to meet Debbie Johnston. She and her teenage son, Jeff, had learned about bullying the hard way.
This one was taken Christmas time there with Mickey Mouse. And I guess this one's a favorite, at the edge of the volcano in Hawaii. He was an extremely happy kid. He was smart, creative, described a lot by a lot of people as just an old soul.
It's my 9th birthday in this picture, and one of my guests was Jeffrey. He was like the life of the party. Like, everybody loved Jeffrey.
Well, I first met him in 7th grade language arts class, and that was, because of him, probably the most fun class I've ever been in.
He seems to be a lovely and loved child. So what happened?
He was head over heels for a little girl in his class. And that's when the telephone calls began. This boy in Jeff's class called the house, and he was calling Jeff a stalker and threatening him. to keep away from her and telling him that everybody didn't like him. This bully just had a unique capacity to go right for the spot that hurt.
We want to know about your experiences, and particularly about experiences with other kids in school.
For more than a decade, Dr. Jana Juvonen has studied bullying, why it happens, and what can be done about it. She and her colleagues have been tracking 2,300 children in Los Angeles as they move from middle through high school.
Who are the coolest kids in your grade? That's number 3. And by cool, we mean popular.
Essentially, the bully wants to intimidate, humiliate the victim in the presence of many others. The bully needs the audience. What we find in our research is that bullies are actually considered popular. Often they are considered the cool kids, so they have social status. Other species do that too. That is, if you think about monkey troops, who's the dominant leader? It's the one who has shown everybody else that I'm the powerful, I'm the mighty. So what we have learned about
Juvonen's research has overturned a popular misconception, namely, that being bullied builds character.
We have learned during the past decade that these experiences of bullying don't help kids develop thicker skin, but often thinner skin.
Jeff Johnston was relentlessly bullied for over a year and was extremely fragile when he and his friends set out to design an online game.
We've spent weeks and weeks on the game, and the password is given out to me, Jeff, and a few of me and Jeff's closest friends. And one of our friends, I guess, gave it to him, gave it to the bully.
He got on there, deleted everything, and then posts like really mean things on there about Jeff.
Jeff's a fag, Jeff's this, Jeff's that, Jeff should die, blah, 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 just horrible things.
That whole, section of Jeff's life, it was almost like it wasn't erased, it was amputated.
Although Jeff's tormentors went to unusual lengths, this type of humiliation is all too common. About 1/3 of all students between the ages of 12 and 18 report being bullied every year.
Does everyone understand what mob mentality means?
So what can be done to stop it? In Brooklyn, New York, Blessed Sacrament School is dealing with a bullying problem of its own.
When I started here, I would say teasing was done on a daily basis, and it would lead up to weekly intervals of bullying. Internet bullying started. 3 girls were actually involved in it. They were on MySpace, and one of the girls found out the other girl's password, and the other kids on MySpace were going to her page and reading all these horrible things about her.
Emotions are great, but unless they're handled well, they're not great.
The school turned to Yale psychologist Dr. Mark Brackett. His emotional literacy program trains teachers so that they can help students understand the emotional impact of bullying and respond to it more effectively.
Our goal is to teach children how to identify how they're feeling. Frustrated, giving children the words to describe their feelings. What other sort of emotions might be relevant there?
Rage.
Rage. We see emotional literacy as sort of a protective factor. The most important thing that our work does is teaching children how to handle themselves better. So, for example, they're in a classroom and there's a bully, and the bully makes them feel bad about themselves. What strategies do they have? Because when they can identify how they're feeling, it gives them the opportunity to ask for help.
I was always taught in my education courses of don't smile in class till January. You don't want to give them the emotional part of it. Now this guy's coming in telling me, hey, let's show your emotions, share them. These kids all have these emotions, and they're just frustrated because they don't know how to express them. I implement an emotional word every 2 weeks. Empathy, relating to and understanding another person's then I asked the students, can you tell me of a time you felt this emotion?
I had a best friend. Everyone made fun of her because she was different. I felt so bad for her.
Giving students an emotional vocabulary can help them cope with bullying. But research suggests that the most effective way to eliminate it is to teach students to stand up for each other. But this only works when school authorities send a clear message that bullying will not be tolerated.
She didn't call me, she didn't tell me she was sick.
We know from playground observation studies that if another kid intervenes, bullying stops within seconds. We also know that very few kids are willing to do that and do that. So what we need to do is to try to address the bystanders, the onlookers. By being somewhat passive, just maybe occasionally smiling, they're encouraging the bully and bullying behavior. But moreover, we have to provide support that enables them to gain the confidence to go and challenge the bully or just stand up for the victim.
I don't feel that there is a bullying problem here in the school I'm at today. Students treat each other with common social courtesies. They're empathetic, they're sympathetic, they're respectful. They're just generally nicer to one another.
In the case of Jeff Johnston, his mom went to the school authorities. The teacher talked to Jeff's class about bullying, with little impact.
We thought we were doing the right thing, but it only made it worse.
What went wrong? Why was the intervention by the school so ineffective?
You know, it's just one child's word against the other. Even though you know the truth, because you can't prove it, you can't stop it. The school didn't have the power to intervene with requiring students to get counseling.
As the bullying continued, Jeff became increasingly isolated, withdrawing from his relationships with the very people who might have helped him.
By the end of 8th grade year, he was a very quiet kid. He would just kind of sit in the classroom and not say anything to anyone.
When nobody intervenes, kids are actually interpreting that as everybody approves of what's going on. And that creates a false norm for the group, where people are even more reluctant to go and try to defend or help the victim because they think everybody's accepting of this.
Jeff was never the same. That just inner core of happiness that just shone like a light from him was just gone. We had plans. The War of the Worlds was opening the next day, and he was actually really excited about it. He loved science fiction, and next morning I went to wake him up. When we opened the bedroom door, we saw him hanging in the closet. He was already gone.
All that was going through my mind is he's gone and he's never going to come back. It was horrible.
I remember screaming, like, really loud. It's the most devastating thing I've ever been through my entire life to this day.
His last words to his family and friends, he said, "Don't blame anyone. The world can't change." And all I could think of is, we can't let this happen again. We have to change it. And so I took all the evidence and all the statements to the detectives who investigated the case, and they said, well, there's no doubt about what happened. The trouble is it's not against the law. I was angry, probably angrier than I've ever been. And I fired off an email to our Governor, Jeb Bush. And Governor Bush, he wrote, "We need a law."
Debbie Johnston accomplished her emotional 3-year mission this week with the passage of Jeffrey's Law. With state funding on the line, it requires schools to adopt proven anti-bullying rules.
Jeffrey's Law takes the burden of proof away from victims and requires teachers and administrators to take real steps to stop any reported case of bullying.
This bill not only empowers schools to protect children from bullying, it requires schools to protect them from bullying. The most important thing is it reassures that child that everyone at the school is firmly on their side and committed to their protection.
In Jeff's last note, he said, "Nothing ever changes the world." You proved him wrong about that.
Yeah. That's what we set out to do.
I don't know, I think I fell in love with my wife at first sight. When I saw her, she was on a date with somebody and I was on a date with somebody. And when we saw each other, we was on a date with each other after that. We never even went back to check on the people who we was with. We just sat and spoke for about an hour.
That was so rude. I feel so bad, but I couldn't help it.
And we had our own date.
He talked with me the whole night.
We were standing right about here.
That was the moment. That was when I felt fire and desire.
She was so beautiful to me in all aspects. Like, she looked good, she was funny, she was smart, she was sweet. Like, I was just into her. I used to call her my little African queen.
When you're a young man, you're just nuts, I mean, so to speak, but you are. I mean, it's like you're just driven. You just got a hunger, you want to touch, feel, you want to grab, you want to be in love, you want to have sex all the time.
In my teens and 20s, all I wanted was that high, the sort of cocaine of love.
I miss her when she's not at the house. I'll call her on her cell phone. Where are you? I just want to hear the voice. You know, this is my life for 28 years.
Yeah, I live for romantic love. I live too much for it. Working on my love addiction.
If social relationships are the key to our survival, then the most essential relationship is the one that perpetuates our species, romantic love. We meet, we flirt, we date, we may even get married. And that's when we find that falling in love is easy, but staying in love takes work.
It was
Stop it.
Phil and Monica have been married for 5 years, and they're trying to figure out how to turn passion into partnership.
Then I told her I was gonna marry you, and then we ended up getting married too, like I said. Then we had a lot of kids because we're married, and that's what married people do.
'Cause you know I love you.
That was hot.
I love you.
Love you too.
The honeymoon period was the first year for me and Phil. Oh, wow, the second going into third, oh my gosh, I was really stressed out. But I knew what I wanted and I knew my capabilities. I was ready, willing, and able to take care of my children. That's not hard to me. The hardest part, honestly, is me and my husband.
Sometimes I just want her to myself, and I can't have her to myself. Because we gotta do the kids, you know? And sometimes we don't get to spend as much time with each other as we want to.
The evidence is quite clear that people who do have children are less satisfied in their relationship than people who don't have children. At the same time, there is evidence that people who have children are more likely to stay married. So children have this paradoxical effect whereby it decreases the level of satisfaction within a relationship, but it increases the stability within a relationship.
You strike up that defensive attitude in me.
Monica, I asked 3 people that know me. Am I a defensive person or a receptive person?
You're not receptive with me.
Because you're too critical, that's why.
No, I am not. He says that I don't understand. I don't think he understands. So we are 2 people who don't understand. I'm blunt and I'm sure of myself. So when I speak,
yeah, but you don't have to always be like that.
But that's
with
me as my.
Relax sometimes.
What you mean?
Like when you like sometimes, yo, you want to know what I do? When you call me, if I have food in my mouth, I spit it out to talk to you because I know you're gonna be mad that I'm eating. Wait. When it comes down to the heated battle, we don't communicate at all. The communication dies. Busy syndrome.
Why does any relationship succeed or fail? One is communication. How well are people able to convey that they value their partner? Second issue is stress. How much stress are you under? Even the very best couples who communicate really well, when there's no stress around, they're going to falter when the husband loses a job, when the wife's mother moves in with them.
My theory is that happy marriages are made of a curious combination of lust and laughter and loyalty. They usually go in that direction. They run out of lust and eventually out of laughter, and they become simply packs of loyalty at a certain point. And when that happens, they're in danger.
I think the rubber really hits the road with love when things get difficult. So a lot of people jump ship at the first sign of conflict, at the first sign of power struggle. They're gone.
It's not enough that you just have a sort of decent relationship with this person. He also has to be your best friend. He also has to be your only romantic partner. He also has to be somebody who inspires you every day. He has to be somebody who's going to help your career. He has to be somebody who co-parents with you. He has to be meet you on 25 different levels of intersection. And it's just this giant sack of expectation that we've piled onto the sort of wobbly head of this old institution that was never necessarily about that in the past.
Much of Philip and Monica's stress comes from Phil's job as a freelance record producer.
That's the original beat that Jano was rapping over?
Yeah. I know sometimes he has to spend a lot of nights at the studio, whether it's producing or engineering. I know that's part of his job. That's what feed us.
I don't even want to hear it. I'm going to just freestyle off what he doing. Huh? Music means everything to me. But sometimes I just don't want to be here doing this at all, period. Not even for the money. I got 4 kids and a wife at home. Sometimes it's just necessary for me to be there, and it creates a lot of stress, but I deal with it though, No battle is won easy,
4 years after getting married, about 10% are as happy as when they first got married. 90% are not. 20, 30 years later, it continues to go down.
I personally believe that the key question about human intimacy that matters is, why do intimate relationships change? How is it that they change? Why is it that we start in a relationship with such high hopes and expectations and have those expectations dashed so frequently?
Psychologist Tom Bradbury is trying to understand how relationships grow and change by studying more than 100 newlywed couples who report to his laboratory every 6 months for observation.
We focus a great deal in my laboratory on couples' conversations, on videotaping couples talking to one another, observing them for 10 or 20 minutes as they try to resolve a major disagreement within their relationship.
You just go immediately and say, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. When you tell me your ideas, I listen and try to think about.
I don't know if that's always the case, but probably
Marital interaction and couple interaction more generally, is remarkably emotional in nature.
Don't just attack me like that.
Okay,
Happy couples disagree all the time. They say things that aren't very nice a lot, but when they say it, they don't say it with a strong negative tone. They are able to pull back on the emotional quality of their critical statements. Relationships revolve around this experience of, am I being understood? Am I being validated and cared for? If couples are able to convey to one another that they understand one another, that they're engaged, that they care about what their partner has to say, that they can even laugh about it and express affection even when they're talking about a problem, well, that turns out to be one of the most powerful indicators that a couple is going to be able to maintain their relationship and keep it strong.
How many times are you going to make the same mistake?
Sometimes you do things wrong. I don't bother you about everything.
Maybe it's just because you're doing everything wrong.
Sometimes she would say things that she didn't necessarily feel in her heart, but her anger made her say these things. And I didn't know whether to take these things serious or not. So I started to take some of the things she said serious, such as she doesn't need me. And then I said, okay, I'll go out and I'll make it so that you don't have to be with me anymore. So I cheated.
I wasn't really upset the fact that he cheated on me. I was upset about the fact that he lied to me when I asked him. It bothers me when anyone lies to me, but more so when a loved one who I put my trust in, you understand, lies to me.
It didn't make me happy because that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be with my wife, but she pushed me away so much that I had to cheat.
So that was just a struggle within itself, just making the decision on what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna run like I usually do, or I'm gonna stay in and just fight.
We know a fair amount of what prompts people to infidelity and with whom and whether they act on it. The two main factors, not surprisingly, are your primary relationship is not going that well and there's good opportunities. In successful marriages, most people don't act on it because it's a violation of trust to the partner.
Affairs happen in relationships that have accepted emotional distance, where people are lonely and they're not reaching out toward one another. So that's what has to be rebuilt.
Does love really have to be this hard? Some scientists think so. In almost every species, sex is a much bigger investment for females than for males because females have to carry, bear, and raise the young. This basic biological fact may cause men and women to seek very different things in their romantic partners.
Around the world, in all 37 cultures that I studied, we found two important clusters of sex differences. One was a cluster that men valued more than women. Youth, men placed a greater premium on physical appearance than women did. It's not that women didn't value it, women do, but they don't value it as much as men. Women placed a greater emphasis on a man's ambition. Does he have goals? Does he have drive? Does he have social status? Is he respected by his peers? Men value cues to fertility, and women value cues to resources.
Given these basic differences between men and women, maybe the real question isn't why romantic relationships end, but why they ever last. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Steve and Rebecca Tobias have been married for 40 years, but they've had to deal with some difficult issues along the way.
Look at you. This is when we met at college, 1966.
No, we met in 65, December.
Oh, yeah.
This was the following
spring.
spring.
This was the following spring.
Right.
Oh, here's our wedding.
There it is.
We grew up together, really, even though we knew each other for 2 years or so before we got married. He said when we met, if you want to stick with me, you have to know that one of the things I want to do is travel around the world with a backpack someday.
They traveled together across Europe and North Africa and settled in San Francisco, where they renovated an old house together.
I love this one.
Yeah,
We have two sons, born 2 years apart. I love that.
Steve and Rebecca seemed to have it right. They were doing many of the things that research tells us are critical to a happy marriage.
what it takes to have a relationship that is vibrant and lively and exciting. Turns out, from the research so far, we know at least two things that bring in the positive. One is what's called capitalization, and that is getting excited about your partner's successes and building on them, capitalizing on them. The other is making your life together exciting.
Dr. Art Aaron has been studying what happens when couples share novel and exciting experiences.
I'm going to tie your legs and your arms together.
In his laboratory, he asked some couples to do a familiar task, and he asked others to do something he felt confident they'd never tried before.
Go.
Dr. Aaron had the couples crawl back and forth across an obstacle course, making them work together against the clock.
There was even some success if they made the time limit, and we always rigged it so they did. Tom, you made it! Congratulations!
It's not surprising that this somewhat silly task gave couples a few minutes of fun. What is surprising is that a few minutes of fun actually changed the way these couples interacted and felt about each other.
What we found is that those couples who spent the 5 minutes doing the exciting, novel, challenging activity had a substantially greater increase from before to after in their reported love for their partner. We think the process is basically one of association, that when you do something novel and challenging, it creates an exhilaration, an excitement in your life. If that's done with your partner as a team, then that novelty and challenge is associated with the relationship.
But novelty alone is not enough to sustain a marriage. Partners must also fulfill each other's needs. And sometimes their needs are in conflict.
I had low self-esteem, and I had a lot of anxiety about work. When I'd come home, it was like a cloud over the house. I would brood. I'd be unavailable. I'd be not present.
We moved several times because of job changes. So the instability and insecurity around our future made me very anxious and stressed. I think at that time, I might have thought it's mostly you. The problem's mostly you and your insecurities.
You didn't think you had a problem?
I don't know that I thought I had a problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you were very depressed, you would come to me from this needy, kind of sad point of view, and that wasn't very attractive. You didn't approach me as a strong man. I was angry, and I thought, I'm not going to take care of you in this way.
There was endless thinking about, is it her, is it me, is it us? And it was painful.
Steve and Rebecca set aside their problems and buried themselves in the hard work of raising a family. But when their youngest left home, their difficulties reemerged and intruded into the bedroom.
Steve is much more sensual and wants more physical contact than I do. Steve said to me, I want a sexual relationship. And if you're not willing to really work on that with me, then this isn't going to work out.
I said, if I can't expect to have a next sexual encounter, it's not a marriage and I won't stay in it.
I was satisfied with our companionship and our activities and so on, and that I could live without a sex life. But once Steve made it very clear, I realized that I had to really look at this issue and really try to deal with it.
Steve and Rebecca went to individual therapy and to couples counseling. That's what we suggested Phil and Monica try. Marriage counseling with clinical psychologist Dr. Javier Amador.
How was it getting here?
It was cool until we got off the train.
What happened when you got off the train?
I pretty much knew where I was going. I thought it was a left, but it was actually a right that I had to make. I was going the wrong way.
First of all, when Phil got out the train station, I asked him, do you know where you're going? He said, I know. As we're walking, we're already late. He says, oh, let me grab a donut. We're late already. He said, no, we have to be at 8:45. I said, no, we have to be at 8:30. He's still arguing with me. I got upset. Because you know why? He does it all the time. He doesn't help with the situation at all. He doesn't help. He does not help. Look at him. Now he's looking at his BlackBerry. And he's ignoring. See? You see? In my first therapy session, my husband was checking his BlackBerry. There was no hope. He didn't really care. I feel like I'm talking to a deaf person. What's the purpose?
It was difficult because there was so much stuff bottled up inside me. I cooperated, though. I wanted to make it work, so I cooperated.
Independently, what are you looking to get from this?
We definitely need some new ways to communicate, ways to solve problems like this, because this is a reoccurring thing.
I think I communicate very well.
Okay.
But my husband says I don't communicate well with him, but I communicate well with others.
So that might be a goal he has, that you would communicate better with him, but you don't think that's something you need to work on?
I think he doesn't communicate with me.
One person can't be wrong all of the time. And Monica sometimes gets into a phase where every little thing I do is wrong. Just don't punish me over every little thing I do.
For me, it's so important to see a couple argue and get a clear picture of whether they're arguing in a way that is destructive or a way that's constructive. You can argue in a way that brings you closer to the person you're arguing with, where you feel respected, you feel like they're listening to you, you feel the love that brought you together. They were arguing in ways that actually pushed them further apart. On Monica's part, it was raising her voice and pointing out her criticisms. It wasn't just one criticism, it was 2, 3, 4, 5. And so any single argument became not a single battlefield, but a whole, war.
All he sees is yap, yap, yap. Of course it's going to sound like yap, 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 yap if you're not listening.
Phil understandably got overwhelmed and couldn't keep hearing it. From his perspective, everything, as he put it, he did was wrong, so why say anything at all? Now on his side, he was doing something that can be a very effective, positive strategy, which was kind of, quieting down, stopping, not talking. But he did it to the point where it really became an expression of his anger, where it became a passive-aggressive strategy.
Like, I played a lot of basketball in my life. Sometimes you end up with a team where there's maybe 1 or 2 people on a team pointing out everything that's wrong, arguing, running down the court when we should be playing defense.
Marriage is not basketball.
Wait. Let me say one thing.
Okay.
I'm going to get him motivated and I'm going to get him amped up to win the game. I'm not going to keep criticizing him, because you want to know what I find? When I keep criticizing my small forward, he's going to shut down. He's not going to listen to me. We were so far down. That particular road where you don't know whether you're going to make it or not. I was very far down that road.
You feel defeated.
And what are you feeling defeated by?
My marriage. My marriage is being defeated.
I married very impulsively. I divorced very thoughtfully. Changing your life is, by the way, very expensive, complicated, unpleasant business. And I don't think people do it until they feel like the alternative is worse.
My wife, we had a little incident where I thought we were going to break up, and that's when I knew I loved her. When I felt like, oh man, if I lose her, I'm going to be incredibly depressed. I'm going to go insane if I don't have her. So that's when I knew, I love this woman. I can't lose her. I better clean up my act and fix things really fast.
I have never worked to keep a relationship going. I'm just the opposite. The first betrayal, I walk away.
I was there with my wife-to-be. And it's always great when you go to couples sessions, therapy. You pray to God that your lover screws up in front of the doc. You see what I have to put up with?
Relationship issues are the primary reason why anybody seeks any kind of counseling in the United States. So we naturally have to ask, does that work? Do people realize benefits from that? Laboratory studies show that it does work.
Basically, that's what you said, right?
All therapies focus on making conflict constructive and getting people to talk about what their needs are. And for many couples, just those two things are a revolution in the relationship. We've done research now on what to look for in an effective therapist. If the couple really feels that they can talk to this person, the person is not judging them, and it feels safe, and there's really a connection. It's that rapport between the therapist and the client that really creates the magic of therapy.
Do you think all men cheat? Can I ask you that question, honestly?
Do I think all men cheat? No.
I said to myself, damn, I didn't come into this relationship to make her unhappy. I came in here to make her happy and be her everything. And when I was doing my cheating thing, I really didn't care about my relationship anymore. I didn't care. I felt like she didn't want to be with me.
Right now, I just feel like punching him.
You still got an open wound there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
I think then...
I don't trust him. I would never trust him like I trusted him before. Never.
You want to?
I don't know. I can't answer that question right now. I have to think about that.
I suspect that, the long list of complaints you have maybe wouldn't be so long if you were feeling more trust. The fact is, if you can't trust your husband, how can you stay with him?
I agree.
I'm not telling you you should trust him. I'm not telling you you should not trust him. I'm telling you that what I see as an underlying issue for the two of you as a couple is rebuilding that trust if you can. Okay? I don't think anybody ever gets over being cheated on. I think that damage to the trust is always going to be there. The question is it there as an open wound, or is it there as a scar? I think that for Monica, if she can't forgive and take the leap of faith to trust again, there can't be a relationship.
It was the fact that he lied about what he did.
I don't know if Monica sees what was happening in the relationship and her contribution to it. It doesn't absolve him of the ultimate responsibility by any means, but it broadens the sense of responsibility in terms of how do I relate to my partner.
Have a seat. No tricks right now.
What are you doing? Why are you sitting But listen, you hear me? Yes. I'm kind of a little tired.
You're kind of tired?
Not tired physically, just tired mentally.
I wish my wife would start to let certain things go so together we can move forward. We have a long way to go.
You want to try to explain that one?
Yeah. Let's relate this to basketball, right?
Why do you always have to socialize shit with sports? I'm getting tired of that. I've been hearing about basketball for 5 damn years now. I'm tired of hearing basketball. Every topic is basketball. What the hell is wrong with you?
Here's the problem for both of you. There is no absolute truth. We can get 10 people lined up, and we can get 10 different votes on it, and you're both going to be right, and you're both going to be wrong. And so that's not how you resolve arguments.
Emotions are never right or wrong. They're always right. From the perspective of the person feeling the emotion, it's the truth. It's what I feel.
One of the things that you can learn to do is to really understand and respect each other's point of view.
Yes, even if I'm wrong, I want to feel respected.
Okay.
Like I was heard.
Like you were heard.
Yes.
Okay.
When you do this kind of work, you really are trying to help people see what they can change in themselves first. Because if they're so myopically focused on trying to change their partner, that's actually how they got into the bad place they're in. Because you can't change the other person. You can focus on changing yourself.
Well, I'm sorry I was so cranky.
You know, you can't hurt my feelings as easy as you used to. I had this image that to be really competent, you're an administrator, you're an executive. And so I spent, I don't know, 12 or 15 years trying to be a middle manager and really not doing it well, doing it very poorly, and getting depressed. I think the one thing that made the big difference was finally letting go of that idea of making a lot of money or being a big shot. I'm doing a much less ambitious kind of work, and I'm getting a lot of pleasure. I do counseling now. I see people who are hurting, and I'm good at it. And it feels good to do it.
We don't have much on the list. I grew up with a misunderstanding of what sex was all about. The views that I had, even from very young in my life, had to do with the role of the woman as being there to meet the needs of a man and to not meet her own needs. At times I did think, this is too hard. I just want out of this situation. We build up a whole world and a whole idea about who we are. I'm a person who, you know, has these points of view, and I see the world in this way, and then I had to shed all of that.
Right.
I had to shed all of this years and years and years of an idea of who I was and how I related to men and the whole thing. And it was very hard.
Yeah.
But it was worth it.
Was it?
Yeah, I'm only sorry I didn't do it sooner.
Phil, just so I can get the big picture, when did your father pass away?
When I was about 2.
How did he pass away? Do you mind if I ask?
Murder.
He was murdered?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so when you were 2, this happened. So do you have any memory of your father at all?
I definitely remember him putting a basketball in my crib, and I remember that basketball. I remember hugging the basketball, trying to hold it. You know what I'm saying? I definitely remember that.
It meant a lot to you.
That's why I love basketball so much.
And that's your only memory of him?
Of him, yeah. That's the only memory.
That's amazing. Like, I didn't know that. So now I understand why. It was like a light bulb went off my head, like, oh my gosh.
I think the biggest change I saw in Monica, which makes me very optimistic about her, is empathy. And with that realization, you know, the love she has for him, and it was apparent in the moment that she had it, that this was where she was motivated to change.
I wasn't letting him express himself. I wasn't basically listening to him. Listening goes a long way when you listen to somebody. It really does. And sometimes it's better to listen. Be the receiver, because you'll learn a lot more.
I'm only one person. I'm doing everything in my power right now to go to the next level and to move forward or whatever.
Good. Then you're not going to mind that I'm giving you 3 hours of homework between now and the next time we meet, right?
3 hours?
Okay. Can you have one date?
Ooh, a date?
Can you have a date?
Yes.
Can you fit that in?
Yes, we can definitely fit.
Okay. No complaints allowed during that date. If you have the impulse, even if it feels artificial, don't do it. Look for something to do.
It's so hard.
You can't stop arguing for 2 hours?
Once I go, I go. I can do
Give
it.
it a shot. It's real simple.
My date with Phil, it was nice. It was really nice. We haven't did that have we ever done that before? We had to think. Thank you. For just me and him and candles, the last time I think we did something really romantic like that was at our wedding.
We did a lot of communicating lately. And I let her know a lot of things that was really on my mind. You know, not not just to argue about them, or not even really to just discuss them, just to let her know how I felt about certain things, and it felt good for me.
I think Phil's epiphany was that he can't just shut up and let it all settle down. That when he stops talking, it makes Monica crazy. He's learned that he's got to find a way of communicating that she can hear.
I'm going to be receptive to those things that she says, and I'm going to say what I want to say back.
I don't take it as criticism.
But I am very optimistic for Monica and Philip, because there's a great deal of basic respect and admiration and love. They really appreciate each other.
My wife told me, she said, you know what, you're a good husband. Because
When I told Phil he was a good father and a good husband, I told him he was both, he felt real good.
I said, you know what? I started looking around. I said, you're right. That was the best gift she ever gave me.
Put your hood on your head, Jamal. It's chilly out here.
Phil is a good man. He's a strong man. Everyone falls. Everyone falls. It's not about the fall, it's about getting up. And how fast you get up. You understand? So I could honestly say, yes, I played part to his infidelity. I did. And I forgive him. I forgive him.
As far as, you know, staying together for 20, 30 years, it's gonna take constant attention, constant work. It's gonna take a lot. It's not gonna be easy at all. But I'm willing to do the work.
Mother, father, son, daughter, husband, wife, partner, friend. These are the one-word descriptions that tell the stories of our lives. When we come together as family, as friends, as lovers, we become more than the sum of our parts. We're the most successful of all the animals on our planet because we're the most social, and that's why each of us is inextricably bound to others. In the end, those social connections, those bonds, are what it's all about. When they're strong, we're happy. When they're threatened, we worry. When they disappear, we suffer. In many ways, navigating the social world is more complicated than a voyage to the moon. But it's the journey we have to take. Because whether we like it or not, our happiness is in each other's hands.
$10,000.
15? 15, you think?
20, 21,000?
600.
20. 18.5.
24.
It's at least 40.
Look at it.
4,500,000.
650.
20.
650.
This textile would be worth about $500,000.
$500,000?
No way.
I knew it. It's just a blanket.
Laying on the back of a chair. Well, sir, you have a national treasure.
Wow.
A national treasure. Congratulations.
I can't believe this.